Ever wonder what people pondered before Socrates came on the scene? Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of pre-Socratic philosophers.
Right.
The OG thinkers who tried to make sense of the universe without relying on the Greek gods.
Yeah.
You've got a stack of sources on this, so we're here to help you extract the most mind-blowing insights. Get ready for some aha moments.
Absolutely.
So, when we say pre-Socratic, it doesn't literally mean they were all, like, sitting around before Socrates was born.
Right.
It's more about a different way of approaching philosophy.
Yeah, exactly. It's a different approach, a different set of questions they were grappling with.
And here's the thing that I find so fascinating about them. Much of what we know about these guys is based on fragments and quotes that have been passed down through the centuries, some of which might be totally biased. It's like trying to piece together a historical puzzle with half the pieces missing.
It really is. It's like a giant jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah.
Where we have these tantalizing glimpses into their ideas,
Right.
but we have to be really careful about how we interpret them.
That's right. But that's part of what makes this deep dive so exciting, right?
Oh, absolutely.
We get to explore these different schools of thought, each with its own unique take on the universe. It's like a philosophical buffet.
I like that. A philosophical buffet.
Okay, so where do we even begin with these pre-Socratics?
Well, I think a good place to start is with the idea of the Archê.
The Archê. Now that sounds intimidating. Break it down for us.
It's actually a pretty simple concept, at least in principle. The Archê is the fundamental principle or substance that everything else comes from.
Oh, okay. So instead of saying Zeus did it, they wanted to find a more concrete explanation, right?
Exactly. They were searching for a natural explanation for the world around them.
Got it. So who are some of these early pioneers of natural explanations?
Well, the Milesian school is a great place to start.
Milesian, as in from the city of Miletus.
That's right. These philosophers from Miletus were some of the first to break away from mythological explanations and search for a natural Archê.
Like the first philosophical boy band.
I love that.
So who are the stars of this Milesian boy band?
Well, the big three were Thales, Anaximander, and Anaximenes.
Okay, I've heard of Thales. He's the water guy, right?
He is. Thales believed that water was the Archê, the fundamental substance that everything else is made of.
Water. Really? I mean, it's important, sure, but everything.
I know, it might sound a little simplistic to us today.
Yeah.
But remember, this was a radical idea at the time.
That's true.
Thales was observing the natural world, and he was seeing how crucial water was for life. How it could take on different forms.
Oh, right. Like solid ice, liquid water, and even vapor in the air.
Exactly. He was starting to see a pattern. Transformation.
So he wasn't just saying, hey, look, there's water everywhere.
Yeah.
He was seeing water's potential to change, to become other things.
You got it. And that led him to the revolutionary idea that maybe, just maybe, water was the underlying substance that everything else emerged from and transformed into.
That's pretty wild when you think about it.
It is.
Like imagine him watching a puddle evaporate and going, aha, proof.
Huh. Well, we can't know for sure what was going through his head, but it's a fun image.
It is. So Thales was all about water. What about these other Milesians? Anaximander.
Yeah, yes. Anaximander, he took a different, even more abstract approach.
Ooh.
He proposed that the Archê couldn't be something so specific like water or air.
Okay, so if Thales was focused on something we could see and touch, like water, Anaximander went in the completely opposite direction.
He did. He called this Archê the apeiron.
The apeiron. Okay, now we're getting really philosophical. What is that?
It's hard to define. It's boundless, undefined, a kind of primordial substance, really.
So basically, the potential for everything that exists all rolled into one.
That's a pretty good way of putting it. And this idea that the Archê had to be something unlimited, well, that was pretty radical for its time.
No wonder we only have fragments of his work. That's some deep stuff.
It definitely is. And then we have Anaximenes.
Okay, hit me with Anaximenes.
He thought that air was the Archê.
Interesting. So we've got water, the boundless apeiron, and now air, all from the same school of thought. Sounds like they had some lively debates over Miletus.
Oh, I'm sure they did. You can just imagine them arguing in the marketplace,
Right.
passionately debating about the nature of reality.
So even though they had different ideas about the specific Archê, they were all looking for a natural, fundamental principle to explain the universe.
Exactly. And in doing so, they shifted the focus away from divine intervention towards something more observable and potentially understandable.
Like they were taking the first steps towards a scientific worldview.
That's a great way to put it. It's like they were saying, hey, maybe we don't need the gods to explain everything. Maybe there are natural laws at work here that we can figure out.
Love it. Okay, so we've got the Milesians looking to the natural world for answers. What other schools of thought were exploring the universe in these early days?
Well, shifting gears a bit, let's talk about the Pythagoreans.
Okay, the Pythagoreans.
They were a fascinating bunch.
Yeah, Pythagoras, he's the triangle guy, right?
Well, he's definitely known for his theorem.
Yeah.
But there's so much more to the Pythagoreans than just geometry.
Oh, I bet. So what were they all about?
They believed that numbers weren't just tools for measurement.
Yeah.
They were the very essence of reality. They saw mathematical ratios and harmonies.
Ratios and harmonies.
In music, astronomy, and even in the structure of the universe itself.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah.
So instead of looking for, like, a physical stuff to explain everything, they thought the universe was, like, built on math.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They believed that everything could be expressed and understood through the language of numbers.
So it wasn't just about triangles and squares. It was a whole worldview.
It absolutely was.
Yeah.
And it had a profound impact on how they lived their lives.
I can see how that would lead to some pretty interesting lifestyles.
Oh, yeah. I mean, think about it. If you believe that numbers hold the key to understanding the universe, that they have a kind of mystical power,
right.
Well, it's going to affect how you see everything.
You're going to start seeing patterns and numbers everywhere.
Exactly. And they did. The Pythagoreans were known for their strict rules and rituals, many of which were based on their belief in the power of numbers.
So it's kind of like they were devoted to uncovering the mathematical secrets of the cosmos?
There's definitely an element of that. It's like they were trying to decode the universe using math as their cipher.
Fascinating. Okay, so maybe a little too devoted to numbers, but I can see how their focus on mathematics led to some important discoveries.
Oh, absolutely. Their work in geometry and music theory was groundbreaking. But let's move on to another group of thinkers who had a very different take on the universe.
Okay, who's next?
The Ephesian school, led by Heraclitus.
Heraclitus. Isn't he the one who said you can't step in the same river twice?
That's the one. Heraclitus is famous for his philosophy of constant change.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. He believed that everything is in flux, right?
Precisely. He believed the universe is in a state of perpetual flux, always becoming something new.
Makes sense when you think about it. I mean, nothing really stays the same, right?
Exactly. We grow older, seasons change, relationships evolve. Nothing remains constant.
It's like the only constant is change itself.
And for Heraclitus, this constant change wasn't random or chaotic.
Oh.
He saw it as driven by a kind of universal reason, a logos.
So instead of a single substance as the foundation of everything, he saw change itself as the defining feature of reality.
Exactly. And he believed that fire was the element that best represented this constant change and transformation.
Yeah. Fire. I mean, I can see how that makes sense. Always moving, always consuming, always transforming.
Just like fire consumes and transforms everything in its path, Heraclitus saw the universe as constantly being burned and remade.
Wow, that's a powerful image. It's definitely a contrast to the Milesians who were looking for a stable, unchanging Archê.
It is. Heraclitus is basically saying, nope, the only constant is change itself.
And I guess he's got a point, right? I mean, the universe isn't exactly static.
Right. And that brings us to another group of philosophers who really shook things up.
Okay, lay it on me. Who are we talking about now?
The Eleatics.
The Elia.
These guys were known for their radical skepticism.
Skepticism about what?
Towards our senses.
Wait, they didn't trust their senses, but isn't that how we experience the world?
That's exactly what makes the Eleatics so fascinating. They argued that our senses deceive us.
Deceive us?
Yeah, they thought the world we perceive is just an illusion.
An illusion. Whoa.
Like a constantly shifting shadow play.
Okay, I'm intrigued, but also a little confused.
It is mind-bending stuff.
So, who should we start with?
Let's start with Parmenides.
Okay, Parmenides. What did he have to say?
He was one of the most influential Eleatics.
Okay.
And he argued that true reality, it's a single, unchanging, eternal entity.
A single, unchanging. So everything we see changing around us is just an illusion?
That's a great way to put it. It's like he's saying there's this whole other level of reality that we're not even aware of.
It's like we're living in the Matrix. So how do they explain all the movement and transformation we see all around us if it's all just an illusion?
Well, that's where Zeno comes in.
Zeno?
Parmenides' student.
Okay.
He's famous for his paradoxes.
Paradoxes. Like, what do you mean?
Thought experiments.
Oh, yeah.
Designed to show how motion and change don't make logical sense.
I think I've heard of Zeno's paradoxes. They always kind of messed with my head.
Oh, they definitely can. One of his most famous is the paradox of Achilles in the tortoise.
Achilles. That's the fast runner.
Yeah, the fastest runner in Greece.
And he raced a tortoise.
He did in this thought experiment. And Zeno argues that Achilles could never actually overtake the tortoise, even though he's much faster.
Wait, how is that possible?
Zeno says by the time Achilles reaches the point where the tortoise was, the tortoise will have moved a bit further ahead.
Okay.
And no matter how small that distance gets, Achilles always has another, even smaller distance to cover.
So he's, like, constantly getting closer, but never actually catching up.
Exactly. So logically, Zeno says he can never catch the tortoise.
Whoa. That is messing with my head a little bit. I mean, obviously we know that Achilles would win in real life.
Right. But that's the point of the paradox.
Yeah.
It exposes the inherent contradictions in how we think about motion and change.
Makes you question everything, right?
It really does. So we've got the Milesians looking at the physical world for answers.
Right.
The Pythagoreans focused on the mathematical harmony of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Heraclitus emphasizing the constant flow of change.
Yeah.
And the Eleatics challenging the reality of our senses.
It's incredible how these pre-Socratic philosophers were tackling such big questions and from such different angles.
It really is amazing. And, speaking of legacies, let's move on to our final group of pre-Socratic thinkers.
Okay, bring them on. Who are we talking about?
The atomists.
The atomists, okay.
They might just blow your mind
Okay.
because their ideas about the universe sound incredibly modern.
Yeah, I know a little bit about the atomists, Leucippus and Democritus.
Yeah.
It always amazes me that they were, like, already thinking about atoms way back then.
Right.
I mean, without any of the, like, scientific tools we have today.
It's remarkable. They proposed that everything in the universe, it's made up of these tiny, indivisible particles called atoms moving around in empty space.
Okay.
What they called the void.
So it's like they were envisioning the world as this, like, giant Lego set, right?
It's a great analogy.
Where atoms are the building blocks.
Exactly. And just like with Legos, they believe that all the diversity of the world, it comes from the different arrangements and combinations of these atoms.
So a tree and a rock could be made of the same fundamental particles, but the way those atoms are, like, structured and how they interact, that's what gives them their unique properties.
Absolutely.
So instead of looking for, like, one single Archê to explain everything, they had a whole system of tiny particles creating the world around us.
Exactly. And they even had some really insightful ideas about how these atoms behave, too.
Oh, really? Like what?
Well, they thought that atoms were constantly in motion, colliding with each other, forming different combinations.
Constantly moving. It's like a microscopic dance party.
Huh. I love that.
So were they, like, right about everything?
Well, not exactly.
Yeah.
But they were definitely on the right track with a lot of their ideas. They even believed that, like, the shapes and sizes of atoms influence the properties of matter.
Okay, that makes sense. Like how?
Well, they thought smooth, round atoms. Those would create liquids.
Okay.
While, like, rough, jagged atoms, those would make up solids.
It's amazing how they came up with these ideas just through, like, observation and thinking things through.
It really is. And their emphasis on the void, the empty space where atoms move, that was also pretty groundbreaking.
How so?
Well, because it challenged the prevailing idea that the universe was a plenum.
A plenum?
Basically a space completely filled with matter.
Oh, okay.
But the atomists, they recognized that empty space, it was just as essential as the atoms themselves for creating the world we experience.
So to sum it all up, we've got the Milesians looking for a fundamental substance.
Yeah.
The Pythagoreans with their mathematical harmony of the universe. Heraclitus and his focus on the constant flow of change.
Right.
The Eleatics challenging the reality of our senses.
Yeah.
And now the atomists with their incredibly modern view of atoms and the void. It's been quite a journey.
It really has. And as we wrap up our deep dive into this fascinating period of philosophy, I'm left with a sense of awe at, the sheer intellectual curiosity and boldness of these early thinkers. They weren't afraid to ask the big questions. To challenge, the accepted ways of thinking. And to imagine these completely new ways of understanding the universe.
And the really mind-blowing thing is how many of their ideas are still relevant today.
Oh, absolutely.
Whether it's the search for a fundamental principle of everything,
right.
the importance of math and how it describes the world, the inevitability of change, the nature of reality, even the atomic structure of the universe.
It's all connected.
These questions, they still drive scientific inquiry and philosophical debate, even now, thousands of years later.
I think that's what makes studying pre-Socratic philosophy so rewarding, really.
Yeah.
It connects us to the very origins of Western thought, you know? And it reminds us that the quest to understand ourselves in the universe, it's timeless, and it's endlessly fascinating.
It's been a truly mind-expanding deep dive. I hope you've enjoyed exploring these groundbreaking ideas with us. And remember, listener, the quest for knowledge doesn't end here. Keep those philosophical fires burning.